Have you ever felt like you're just pouring hours and hours into studying, only to have it all vanish by exam day? What if I told you there's a way to learn more, get better grades, and actually study less? Okay, let's dive right in, because we are about to completely change how you think about learning.
All right, to kick things off, just picture two students. On one hand, you have student A. They study for a little over half an hour a day, get a full 8 hours of sleep, and what do you know? They're scoring in the top 5%. Now, on the other hand, you have student B. This student is grinding for 4 hours every single day, sacrificing sleep, and yet they're struggling just to pull a B. They're both putting in the time, but the results, they're not even in the same ballpark.
So what gives? What is the actual difference here? The easy answers, one's just smarter or one's more dedicated, they're just wrong. The real difference isn't about how long they study, it's about how they study. And that one little distinction, well, it changes absolutely everything.
And this brings us right to what we can call the study paradox, this really strange disconnect between the effort we put in and the results we actually get.
This feeling is just so common. Listen to this story from a student. It's 3 a.m., they're surrounded by coffee cups after a 12-hour marathon study session. They did everything they thought was right, highlighting, rereading, making these perfect notes, only to completely bomb the exam. It's that horrible, sinking feeling when you realize all that time and all that effort was basically for nothing.
This right here is the trap so many of us fall into, the productivity illusion. It's where we confuse the time we spend sitting with a book with the amount we actually learn. Drenching our textbook in highlighter ink or rereading the same chapter for the 5th time. It feels productive, right? But more often than not, it's just spinning our wheels. We're busy, but we're not being effective.
Okay, so why are these traditional methods so bad? Let's get into the science of why you forget almost everything you learn this way.
Well, it all comes down to something called the consumption trap. This is the widespread belief that learning is a one-way street. The more pages you read, the more lectures you watch, the more you'll learn. But here's the thing. Your brain isn't a sponge. It doesn't just passively absorb stuff. It's much more like a muscle that has to be actively worked out.
And this analogy just illustrates the problem perfectly. Passive studying, like just reading or listening, it's like trying to fill a leaky bucket. You can pour water in all day long, but most of it just going to leak right back out. It feels like you're doing something productive, but the bucket, it never really gets full.
Okay, let's just pause here for a second, because this is so important. This is the learning pyramid, and it shows the massive gap in how well we remember things. Look at that bottom bar. Passively reading your textbook, you're retaining a measly 10%. Now look at the insane jump when you get active. The middle bar, actually practicing what you learn, boosts that retention all the way to 75%. And the absolute best method? Trying to teach the concept to someone else. That pushes your retention to a staggering 90%. The gap between being passive and active isn't small, it's a chasm.
So, here's where it all comes together. Real learning is basically the information you take in multiplied by your retention rate. Now look at this breakdown. With the old method, studying for 5 hours at a 10% retention rate gives you 30 minutes of actual solid learning. But with a better method, you could study for just 1 hour, get a 50% retention rate, and end up with the exact same 30 minutes of learning. You just saved yourself 4 hours.
And that brings us to the solution. It's a complete change in mindset, the active learning shift. The single most powerful concept you need to get is active recall. Instead of just looking at the information again and again, active recall is the process of pulling it out of your brain from memory. Think of it like this. It's the difference between recognizing a word on a page and being able to define it from scratch yourself. Here's a great way to think about it. Passively reading your notes is like watching somebody else lift weights at the gym. Sure, you're there, but you're not getting any stronger. Active recall is when you are the one lifting the weight. Yeah, it's harder, but it's that very struggle of retrieving the memory that builds the neural pathways and actually makes it stick.
Okay, so let's get practical. How does this translate into a toolkit you can actually use? Well, here are the strategies you can start using literally today.
All right, 3 super high-impact techniques. First, test yourself before you even start studying. I know, it sounds backwards, but grab a past exam paper. This shows you exactly where your weak spots are so you can focus your energy where it matters. Second, use the Feynman technique. Try to explain a concept in the simplest terms you can, like you're talking to a 5-year-old. If you find yourself getting stuck or using a lot of jargon, boom, you've just found a gap in your own understanding. And third, space it out. Whatever you do, do not cram.
So, spacing it out actually has a name. It's called spaced repetition.
Here's what it looks like. You learn the material on day 1. Then, instead of cramming it all at once, you come back for a super quick 10-minute review on day 3. A few days later, maybe on day 7, you test yourself on it without using any notes. This process interrupts what's called the forgetting curve and basically tells your brain, hey, pay attention. This information is important. Keep it around.
Now, to make all this manageable, here are a few more smart habits to build. First, plan your attack with a traffic light system. Go through your topics and sort them into red for, I don't get this at all, yellow for, I'm a little shaky, and green for, I've got this down. Then you just focus on turning reds into yellows and yellows into greens. Next, work in sprints. You might have heard of the Pomodoro technique, 25 minutes of intense focus followed by a 5-minute break. This stops you from burning out. And finally, to beat procrastination, use the 2-minute rule. Just commit to doing something for only 2 minutes. That's it. You'll be amazed how often just starting is the hardest part.
Okay, let's bring this all home. The goal here isn't just about changing a few tactics, it's about shifting your entire philosophy on what it means to learn.
And here is the real secret, the one that the top students really understand. It's not about some heroic all-night cram session. It's about consistency. Small, focused, smart efforts done every day will always, and I mean always, beat last-minute panic.
So the big takeaway is this. The goal has never been to study harder. It's to study smarter. It's about leveraging how your brain is actually designed to work so you can get better results with way less stress and, believe it or not, more free time.
Okay, remember at the very beginning when I asked you to rate your own study method? Think about that number again. After everything we've just covered, do you still think it deserves that score? And if the answer is no, that's actually a great sign. It means you're ready to make a change.